Hello crafty friend, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Adrienne of Ella Scraps Wonderland. Today I'm sharing how you can create a scrapbook layout using the starter kit that comes with the newly redesigned Sizzix Big Shot. Now, I did an unboxing of this die cut machine and starter kit from Sizzix over on my Instagram, but let's just review a few of the things here. Besides the sleek modern design, you get a handle that is easily detachable and stores on the bottom of the machine, perfect for stowing your machine when not in use or more easily taking it on the go to crops. With the starter kit, you get a sturdy Sizzix envelope that includes a 3D embossing folder, cardstock, and a set of thin-lit dies. And of course, you also get the cutting pad and plate system you need to emboss and die cut with this machine. I'll be scrapping this photo of my niece at a local pumpkin patch from a couple of years ago. But before we get started, I'm just going to share how I like to store new thinlits. I use a sheet of magnetic material and place my thinlits onto the sheet. This can easily be stored in the envelope, and it makes it less likely that you'll lose any small dies while in the envelope. And with this tiny set of alphabet dies, this is something I think is really important, especially since you only have one of each letter, and this is only a thinlit set you can get in the starter kit of your Big Shot machine, making it harder to replace lost thinlits. I also want to go over a couple of other tools from Sizzix that I think you'll find helpful for this project or other projects. First up is the Sizzix scoring board and trimmer tool. This tool is great because you get the paper trimmer and scoring board all in one. That means there's less to store. The ruler can be placed at various angles to help with creating envelopes or cutting tags, plus you get these handy punch tools at the top. Next is the Sizzix multi-tool. There are 3 different sets here, but each comes with a handle that allows you to swap out the different pieces. From palette knives to cutting blades to a rubber-ended pickup tool, there are so many different options, and you can have the tool head on each end of the handle if you want. There's also a separate blending foam head and foams you can use for inking through stencils. For this project in particular, I'll be using a few other supplies, including a water spray bottle, Sizzix Express glue, some dotted adhesive runner, white cardstock, and foam adhesive and a brown cardstock, which aren't shown here. You can pull the dies you want to use directly off the magnet they are being stored on, or if you have the Sizzix Gotcha tool, you can place those on the magnetic surface of this tool and store the other ones out of the way. I'm also pulling out the possible colors of cardstock I want to use from the cardstock pack. Since this is an autumnal layout, I'm pulling white, gold, green, yellow, and orange from the starter kit cardstock. So let's get into the die cutting so you can see how nicely this redesigned Big Shot works. For thinlits, you'll want the main thicker platform base, shim A, and the 2 plastic cutting pads, placing the die and cardstock in between the 2 plastic cutting pads. This particular die has a long straight edge, and if you place it on your pad so that the straight edge is parallel to the rollers in the machine, this can make it more difficult for your machine to roll the die through, and you may feel a lot of resistance. So to avoid this, you want to place anything with a long straight edge at a diagonal. Let's pull the machine back on camera and roll this through. This machine cuts like butter. If you are a first-time metal die cut machine user, you'll notice that the dies cut into the plastic pad, and this is totally normal and what is supposed to happen. You may also hear a cracking noise as you roll your dies through, and this is also normal. Let's keep die cutting some of these shapes together. It's a little hard to tell because the cutting pads are clear, but just like I'm doing, you'll want to flip and rotate your plastic cutting pads around as you work. This will minimize warping that happens from the cutting process. What I like to do is always have one pad that I cut into and another that lays on the top. This helps limit impressions in your specialty cardstock during the cutting process. Once the bottom pad is ready to be replaced, simply move the top pad to the bottom for cutting into and place a new fresh pad on top. Some dies in this thinlet set have some small openings, and you'll want to remove the cardstock that gets stuck in those areas. There's a few ways to do that. One is to throw your die on a hard surface. It's messy but often does the trick. You can also use a craft awl to poke the pieces out. But if that takes too long, the Sizzix die brush and foam mat is perfect for removing those little bits quickly. Let's cut a few more shapes together before I do the rest off camera. And if you're enjoying this tutorial, don't forget to give this video a like and to hit the subscribe button to get more content like this. You've probably noticed the mint colored tape I'm using. This is Scrapbook.com's mint tape. Sizzix also has a low tack craft tape you can use, and this simply holds your dies in place as you put your pads into the machine and roll it through. Nothing is worse than having a die cut ruined because it moved off the cardstock right before you roll it through the machine. I especially love this tape for tiny alphabet dies such as this. And if a tiny die cut like these alpha pieces are stuck to your cutting pad, you can use an awl to push it off, or you can pick it up with this low tack tape. I just finished die cutting off camera and wanted to share that these plates have had basically no warping with the flipping and rotating. So make sure you follow that tip to get the most out of your cutting pads. The only cardstock color not in the starter kit that I wanted for this project was brown, and I'm just using it for a few of the leaf die cuts and also to map my photo. This is a Sizzix cardstock from their Surfaces line, and here you can see me cutting it down to fit my photo with my Sizzix scoring board and trimmer tool. Now this is totally an optional step, but I think it adds a slightly more dimensional look to your die cuts, and that is adding a little coordinating ink to the edges of your die cuts. I'm using several Tim Holtz Distress inks for this and some tiny blending brushes. I've also placed my die cuts onto a sticky surface. I'm using the Scrapbook.com Grip Mate, but Sizzix Sticky Grid is also something I've used for this as well. I've used fossilized amber ink for the yellow die cuts, spiced marmalade for the orange ones, rustic wilderness for the green, and ground espresso for the brown die cuts. I left the gold and white pieces and the labels uninked. Next, I start gluing the flower centers onto all of the flowers. I'm using Sizzix Express glue for this, but I've just placed it into a smaller bottle that is easier for me to hold with my chronic pain. I also like placing the glued pieces under an acrylic stamping block, as the weight of it really helps press your die cut layers together. Now I cut multiples of the labels so that I can use one set to frame some flowers and the other for the title. To add a little texture, I'm going to emboss one of the white labels. The sandwich for 3D embossing is the thick base plate, the 3D embossing folder with cardstock in it, and one of the plastic cutting pads. For 3D embossing folders such as this, you'll need to mist both sides of the cardstock with water. This will soften the paper fibers so it molds to the embossing folder rather than tearing and wrinkling. Just as with a straight-edged die, you'll want to place your embossing folder at a slight angle so the machine grabs one of the corners first. You'll also want to place the folded edge so it goes into the machine first rather than the open end of the folder. I used a bit of dotted adhesive to glue the photo to the brown cardstock mat. Then I used the Sizzix shaping tool set to add a little more dimension to these flowers. Hold the tool at a 45-degree angle and start by rolling the largest end on the back of the flower's petals. Flip the flower over and press and roll the tool just at the center of the flower. Then do the same with the leaves, working on the back first, then on some of the spots on the front to create a natural curl to the leaves. The label with 3 layers gets glued together with more dotted adhesive. The embossed label will stay glued to the bottom layer better if you use a little express glue instead. For the plain label, I add the title Pumpkin Patch to the center. I like to dry fit my title first. Here you can see me using the intricate multi-tool to help place the letters down. And a little trick to help you glue all these down at once is to use a bit of low-tack tape to pick the letters up, add the express glue to the back, and then place all the letters down all at once. I let this sit for about 60 seconds under my acrylic stamp block to make sure the letters are fully adhered before peeling the tape off. After filming this, I went back and added a second layer of letters to give this more dimension, and I just glued these on one at a time. I'm placing the photo in the center and framing it with the set of labels on opposite corners of the photo. The embossed one is stuck under the photo and adhered to the 12 by 12 white cardstock page with dotted adhesive. Then I use foam adhesive on the photo and the label with the title. You'll see that I add express glue to the foam, and this is just to give me a little wiggle time to make sure the photo is straight. Without it, you have to stick and commit with foam adhesive. The rest of the process for this layout is pretty self-explanatory. I like to dry fit some elements before gluing them in place. For the flowers and leaves, I use both liquid and foam adhesive to provide a layered effect. And you'll see that I dry fit a bit, do some gluing, dry fit some more, and then do more gluing. If you're a visual person like me and you have to see what it looks like before committing with glue, this is a really great process. And I thought I'd stop after a couple of clusters of flowers and leaves, but I couldn't help myself as I just kept adding more die cuts. How much you add is totally up to you and your style. And for me, no project is complete without some bling. I'm adding some pink fresh jewels in orange and yellow to this project, and I start by dry fitting them. Then I go back through and glue them down with a dot of express glue. And let's take a look at the finished project. I'm really happy with how this layout turned out, using mostly supplies from the starter kit with a few add-ons. And of course, I'm really enjoying using my newly redesigned Sizzix Big Shot. If you are looking to upgrade your well-loved Big Shot, or you are just getting into die cutting, this is the perfect machine for you. Thanks for joining me for this tutorial, and I hope you got some good die cutting tips out of it as well. Until next time, happy crafting.